Are you confident in your offers but wishing more people actually saw them? If you're ready to get your voice in front of dream clients without chasing every algorithm, the Visibility Kickstart Fall Flash Mini is for you. In just a couple of days, you'll walk away with custom podcast speaking topics, a simple system to track your pitches, and direct voice messaging support from me, so you can start landing guest spots and planting visibility seeds before the year ends. No long program, no fluff, just action, clarity, and major visibility. You'll be ready to pitch this week. Spots are limited, and this is only good for October. Head to the link in the show notes, and let's get your message into more ears starting now. Okay, welcome back to the Better Brave podcast. I have Xindi here. She's a brand messaging and story strategist. And if you know me, you know that this show is all about doing things that are aligned with you and your business and not really following the norms or the shoulds of society in the world today. So today's guest is going to help you do just that by honing in on your story and how to strategically use it to grow your brand and business. Thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to just dive into this.
I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
Let's just start with the important piece of why is it important for us to use our own personal story in our branding and growing our business?
I love this question because, I think we all know, I'm sure all your listeners know how important it is to use your story. And we typically think about it in terms of like storytelling builds emotional connection. It is great for grabbing attention. It is great at being memorable and being top of mind. And for the longest time, I actually thought about it only in that way until I went through a very specific experience. And I really want to share this experience because I feel like this is so relevant to you, to me, and your listeners, anyone with a personal brand, whether you are a coach, a service provider, a consultant, a strategist. This is going to be so relevant. So basically, I went through an experience in my business, a phase where I went 8 months without a business coach. And context, I am someone who loves investing in myself, like investment junkie right here. I was actively looking for a business coach. Let's be real here. I feel like the industry, the two business coaches are born just as we're speaking right now. There is no shortage of business mentors. So the fact that I went 8 months without one and actively looking for one as well really speaks volume. And the reason why that happened in hindsight, I realized that it was because all the business coaches I was looking at, they all sounded the same in some way. You know how it is, you just hop on Instagram and you will see a post saying like, I made 50K cash man by throwing out the rule book. I built my 7-figure brand by, with my 3-part framework. And the framework would typically look like having a good offer suite, having magnetic messaging, and having an iconic identity. Those were like the messaging that I was being bombarded to with in my corner of the internet. And although they're all amazing, like all the coaches I look at were amazing. They are so successful. They're building incredible businesses, but therein lies the problem. Everyone sounded the same. And so when I was faced with like 5 different choices, 50 different choices, and they're all amazing, how the hell am I supposed to feel super confident and convicted in my decision to be like, hell yeah, I'm going to, invest 5K in you, 8K in you, 10K in you. I wasn't able to do that. And that was when I realized that in order for your buyers to buy from you, you need to tick off 2 factors. Number 1, you need to be different. They need to be able to see how you are different from the 5 other options that they are considering. And number 2, they need to feel safe investing in you. And that is why I developed my strategic storytelling framework to help you stand out and help you create the safe space for your audience to feel confident in when they decide to invest in you.
I love that. There's a few things there, but let's go with, you said you need to be different. And I have heard similar things before. And I think it's one of the things that we really get hung up on of like, I'm not different enough, or what makes me different? Because a lot of us, I know in my community, think we might be moms or we're boring. We live a boring life, but there is your difference. And I know that, but can you speak to that a little bit about, am I different enough? Is this enough? Where do we find that difference? And how do we know that it is enough to set us apart from someone else?
I love that question because that is definitely something that I used to overthink so much. And when I think about being different, right? And I'm definitely not talking about being super groundbreakingly different. Like there's no way. It's going to be very difficult for you to create something from scratch that no one has ever heard of. But the fact that you're able to either deliver your message a certain way, teach a certain topic in your way, through your story, through your experience, that in itself is super different. You know, like have you ever studied a topic again, like for example, I am obsessed with the topic of subconscious mindset and programming is subconscious. And there are certain topics in there that, you know, I would read a book and it makes sense. I would watch this YouTube video, it kind of makes sense. And then I would discover this other speaker who talks about the same topic, but through his story, through his perspective, and suddenly it all makes sense. It all clicked within me. That is what you are aiming for. So when I say that you are different, share it from your perspective, from your lens, through your examples, through your story, right? Like my clients, they always tell me that my content always sounds so different. And I'm like, that's because I look for content ideas in my life, not through Instagram. Because whenever you doom scroll on Instagram, this is when you start picking up on languages that other people are using, picking up on examples that other people in your industry are using. And so of course, you're going to start creating content that is very, very similar. It gets more and more similar every day to that creator that you are obsessed with. That's why I like looking for ideas everywhere. Like I would go for a massage and that's an idea. I would look at my dog's face and she made a really weird face the other day and I turned that into a piece of content. And that is how you start differentiating yourself, just through literally being your authentic self, but in a strategic way.
I like that because it simplifies it so much. It's just like, what are you doing?
Yes.
You know, it's just picking up on those and turning it into a story. So it leads me into thinking, how do we decide what parts of our story to use and what not to use? I know sometimes there's such a huge range potentially of what our story entails, our whole life entails. And I know that you're not saying like share your entire life story, but maybe sometimes that works. But most cases, that's not what we mean. It's little bits here and there. But how does one start to sort of pick that apart and decide I share this or I don't share this or it makes sense to share this?
That is one of the most common questions that my clients come to me for. They always say like, I want to share my story. I don't know where to even begin. Like there's so many entryway into my story. How do I even begin? And that is typically what a lot of us are taught, to be honest, like share your big brand story. What is your origin story, that overarching story? And while that is super powerful and very inspiring, your most powerful stories actually lies in the tiny, tiny moments throughout your life. So I developed this concept called micro stories that I'll be talking about in a bit. But when it comes to your foundation, your brand foundation, I always like to keep it simple and think about three things. Number one, your method. Number two, your perspective. And number three, your values. So these are the three things that I would like to see your story surrounding. So for example, you know, this is typically also where the alignment piece comes into play. So many of us think about storytelling in terms of the output. So like, how do I write a storytelling content? What story should I talk about? How do I tell stories? When in reality, if you want to create a truly aligned brand, something that clicks internally, your inputs should start with your story as well. So look at how your story shaped your method, how your story shaped your perspective and your values. So an example I always give is that right in the beginning of my journey, my very first business coach was a digital nomad, and she's an incredible business coach. So when she asked me, what are my values? That was a question I've never considered in my life before. Like I've never thought about it, but when I look at her, I'm like, her value is freedom. She is waking up in a different country every week. She is in an ocean view villa. Like that is the dream. Of course, I want freedom. You know, of course, freedom is my value. So I started creating content through that lens. Freedom is my value. Freedom in terms of digital nomad, being able to travel the world, having the freedom to do so. But if you truly look at my story and how I live, I'm like the biggest homebody. I don't like to live. I don't like to leave my house. I love traveling, but I love my routine. I love going to the gym. I love seeing my friends. I like the stability that comes with having a routine, a home base. And so when I was creating content from the values perspective, when I was starting to talk about freedom and everything, that was when I started really attracting misaligned clients, because I was not talking about my values from my story, from my perspective. And that is what really encourage people to start thinking about when you are sharing your method, your perspective, your values, how does your personal story ties into that? And this is where this serves as an anchor, right? So when you say like what parts of your story to share, well, what parts are relevant to your story, to your method, your perspectives, and your values. So that's how I would typically think about it. And even with my previous story around me going 8 months without a business coach, that is how I distilled my brand perspective. So instead of going out and being like, what is my coach talking about? What is this other brand messaging strategist talking about? I look back in my own story and my perspective. What did I go through? And what was a lesson I learned from that? And turn that into my unique brand perspective.
When you say method, is that the piece where you're talking about your business, your coaching, how you deliver that part, the business part?
Definitely, like either the way you coach or the way you work with your clients. So if you're a service provider, it is, I always encourage my service provider clients to have some sort of framework and method as well, so that your clients know what they're getting, they know what they're coming into. So for example, if you are a virtual assistant or online business manager, having a framework of like, okay, this is the first thing we're going to do. And then this is how I'm going to sort things out. And this is how I work with my clients. This is how I communicate. This is how I'm going to deliver the results. Or even if you're a website designer, having a strategy framework or having an SEO framework, that is really what builds a lot of confidence. And going back to that safety piece, it makes people feel safe working with you because they can see like, okay, she's got a method to the madness. She's not just winging it.
And I'm not going to have to show up to our call and sort of do most of the work. I'm going to be able to be guided through that.
Yes.
Okay. So how do we go about sharing this story in a way that can build our business? Because ultimately that's the goal. That's why we're sharing. Yes, to inspire. Yes, to connect and support people and serve. Obviously that's at the heart, or I hope it's at the heart of anyone listening to this show. That's
I'm sure
kind of where that's kind of where we start. But on the flip side, we're building a business. And so I want to get real about that. So how do we connect that? How do we start sharing in a way that is going to support building a business?
When it comes to, and I like that you're talking about that, it's important to think about the business piece as well, because ultimately that is how you serve people. When they come into your world, they're able to work with you in a deeper level, in a deeper capacity, and that's where the real magic happens. And this is also why when I developed my storytelling framework, I specifically named it strategic storytelling, because storytelling without a strategy behind it sometimes is just a rant. That's like, keep it in your group chat with your girlfriends.
Yes.
Like, don't hop on your Instagram stories just like talking about everything and anything, because we want to be really strategic with it. And that is why, a lot of people burn out for this reason. There's no strategy behind it. And that's why they're not seeing results. They're doing everything and anything. It's not getting them somewhere. So when it comes to my strategic storytelling method, and I do have a deeper training on this, it's completely free, but the two components that I really want to highlight here is number one, there's the micro story component, and then there is the micro transformation component. So the idea behind it is that you want to share a micro story that leads to a micro transformation. So if I were to break it down a little bit more, your micro story is the tiny, tiny moments, not that big overarching story, but the little pieces in between that really reflects what your audience is going through right now. So for example, I invested in a breathwork membership earlier this year, and I attended a free masterclass that was promoting it. And the facilitator, she was talking about her big overarching story about how she experienced trauma and she was in debt for the longest time, and breathwork really helped her build this like multi-million business she's got right now. And that was really inspiring. But what really got me sold on it was when she started talking about how she was procrastinating on her sales page. That was when I was like, I am sold. Because although that huge overarching story was really inspiring, fortunately, it is a privilege of mine that I've never experienced big T trauma. So it's not something that spoke to me as much. On the other hand, I can't count the number of times I have procrastinated on my sales page. And that is something that is really top of mind for me right now. I feel like I have just not been on top of my to-do list and everything. And so when she shared that tiny, tiny moment, immediately I was like, I'm sold. And I bought into her annual membership, right? So that is what I mean by the tiny stories that really packs a punch. It could be a fleeting thought. It could be a tiny experience, or it could be even that 8 months, experience that I had. So that's the micro story. And when it comes to micro transformation, this is where we want to create a shift within your audience. So think about it like, when you go and when you want to buy a perfume, they give you samples. And when you spray that sample on yourself, you start feeling like, oh my goodness, I love the smell. I love how I feel when I'm wearing this scent. And that's when you go back and buy the bigger bottle. So that's the idea with micro transformation. When you're able to trigger and create as many micro transformation as possible, this is when you're going to start racking up trust. And this is also when you see a lot of people saying like, my client just discovered me 2 days ago and she paid like 10K today. And then she jumped into my highest package today. And this was the exact experience I had with my coach. I discovered her and within 2 days, I invested in one of her highest ticket offer. Not because there's, some magical thing going on, but in that 2 days, I binged everything. I binged her content. I binged her masterclass, her Instagram stories, and every single piece of content created a micro transformation within me. I teach my clients in 3 levels. Number 1, connection. You want to make your audience feel really seen, really heard, really validated. Allow them to see themselves in your story. And that's when they start opening up to you. That's when they start paying attention. And then the second thing you want to think about is rewiring their belief system. What are the beliefs that are keeping them stuck? And what are the beliefs that are holding them back from investing in themselves? Any beliefs that tells them, I can't create this goal. I can't reach this goal. I can't get my desire. And then the third point would be to expand their identity. Show them that they can become this person and that you have a proven method, a proven framework, a proven step for them to take. And when they can visualize themselves going through your method with your guidance and getting the results, that's when they're going to build trust in you, in your offer, in themselves. And that's when they're going to invest. So when your story can create these shifts and these micro transformation within your audience, that is when they're going to see not only connect with you, not only build the emotional connection, but it literally shifts their perspective, shift their belief system, and expand their identity so they can build confidence. They can see themselves winning in your world. They can see themselves succeeding in your world. And that is when they're going to invest without a doubt, because of course they would, right? If their desire is important to them, they see themselves succeeding, why not?
Are you an entrepreneur looking to start or grow your business while feeling supported and seen every step of the way? Join the Aligned Business Collective, the monthly membership I co-host with Andrea Hansen and Brittany Williams, designed for entrepreneurs like you. This is your space to connect, learn, and build a business that truly works for you, while we hold you accountable with our weekly calls and on-demand coaching. Head to the link in the show notes to learn more and join today. Thank you for that. There is so much there that people can just take that and run with. We could end right there, but I want to go a little bit further because I also know that you're big on doing things sustainably. And I love that, being a burnout survivor and, recovering from all that. That's one of my values. So I want to take some time and make sure we hit on that. When we say that this is sustainable, how is this sustainable? Is it about repurposing? Like, tell me about that process, maybe some tangible things that can click for some people listening, like, this is how I can, instead of every single day coming up with a micro story, how do I keep this really sustainable?
I love this question because I think about sustainability in a slightly different way. Yes, repurposing is an important part of it. But when I talk about strategic storytelling, one of the biggest things I work with my clients on is developing the skill of strategic storytelling. So what I mean by skill is that the actual action, because I always tell people, I always tell my audience, I tell my clients, it's not that content creation is exhausting. It's the fact that you're overthinking it, you're second guessing it, you're starting from scratch every day. You don't know what to say. You don't know what your audience needs to hear, and you're going all over the place. The mental drama is what's burning you out. So when you know what you're here to say, what is your message, your method, your perspective, your values, when you know what you're here to share, you will start seeing content everywhere. It's going to take some practice up front, like any skill, but you're going to start going around and seeing like, oh, that is something that my dream clients can relate to. This is something that I can talk about in relation to my perspective. And this is where content creation becomes a lot more, sustainable, because you don't need to sit down and like start from scratch and be like, okay, what am I supposed to talk about today? You already know what you're talking about. So all you have to do is go around and just note things down. You're utilizing your reticular activating system here, looking for ideas everywhere. So for example, like I would go for a massage and I'd be like, this is something that my dream clients want. And one of the massage experience I went to a couple weeks ago, she started upselling me immediately. And I'm like, that is something that's holding my dream clients back because they feel the need to rush into a sale. And I was immediately, after the massage, I sat down in my car in 15 minutes, bang out a carousel, posted it, and that's it. Because I've honed the skill to the point where it is almost muscle memory. So one exercise that your listener can take away with, this is one thing that I always tell my clients to do in the beginning and really be intentional about it. It's just like any skill, you want to be intentional about it in the beginning and really put some thought into it. But it's to think about like, what are the desires or the struggles or anything anything that your audience is going through right now. And how is that playing out in your current life and also in your past? Because your past story, to keep things really simple, it's not a black and white thing, but the stories that happen in the past builds your authority. It shows your audience like, I've gone through this, I've been through it, I've learned these lessons. And the stories in your current life, like something that happened today, the last week or next week, those build your embodiment. So when you've got authority, you've got embodiment. That is like the magic sauce here. So when you can brain dump, so for me, for example, it would be like my dream clients, they really desire, living life with a slow morning, having that slow morning, being able to drink their coffee, read their book, journal, whatever they want. How is that playing out in my life right now? So for me, I love going to the cafe in the morning and work from there and journal and have my coffee. That is a micro story that I can use time and time again every day if I want to. Your audience love repetition. They love seeing what you're up to. So whenever I would go to a cafe, take a picture, boom, that is an embodiment piece. And now I would talk about it in relation to my method, in relation to my values, in relation to my perspective. So tie it back to your core message always. So literally have that bank, that list ready to go. That would really help with those days when you're like, I just really don't want to be thinking about anything right now. So having that list in your notes, that would be super helpful. You can take a look and be like, okay, something happened today. Maybe my baby was crying and it really triggered my stress level. So what did I do about it? I took myself through a breathwork flow maybe. If you're a breathwork facilitator or, some sort of nervous regulation expert, then you can tie it into your method, tie it into your story. This is how I take myself through it. This is how I'm walking the walk. I'm not just talking the talk. And that triggers curiosity around your offer because your audience can see like, okay, yeah, my baby was crying today as well. And I felt really stressed about it. And I felt guilty for being stressed. Boom. If you're a mom's guilt coach, this is where it comes in. How do you bring yourself? How do you walk yourself and carry yourself through that guilt? Right? So these are the little things that I always tell my clients to look out for. Train your reticular activating system. Leverage your brain advantage.
It's like looking for gratitude, like training your brain to look for the gratitude in your day. It's like, look for those little stories. You're starting to touch on it. So let's go there. When we're thinking about actually making sales, booking the client, how do we connect this story piece to that? Is it a call to action at the end? Like, how do we kind of just like blend the two, the story and then also that sales or letting people know that we have a business that can help with this X, Y, and Z?
That is a really good question. So I think what's really important here is really understanding what your dream clients need to hear in order to invest in you. So typically what they want to hear is that you have a solution to a problem that they have. You have a method that really aligns with what they desire and how they desire to create the outcome that they want, right? Because we all want to create a business, but not all of us we want to create a business a certain way. So that is what I would start thinking about. And that is how to tie your story in. So your method, your perspective, your values, those are the three things that I hammer in time and time again. Because when you're able to showcase your values, that is when your dream clients can see that, okay, our values align. So she's someone I definitely want to pay attention to. If you can shift their perspective, if you can show them what they're doing wrong right now, or if they have a limiting belief that they can't get the desires that they want, right? So maybe it's not, I'm not pretty enough. I don't have the right genetics. Shift their perspective. That builds your authority. It shows them like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. She's helping me see things in a different way, in a new way. And that's when they're going to start leaning into you. And then you start talking about your method. You show them that there is a method to the madness. There is a path to success. And I have the path to success. I have a step-by-step plan or pillars or framework, whatever it is that you would prefer. That is when they're going to start trusting you. And that's when they're going to take the leap. So by that time, that call to action plays like 2% of the game, right? I know a lot of people are always thinking about like, how can I craft the most perfect call to action? I always tell them that like, if you can't get your audience to stay through to the very end, the call to action is not going to be super helpful at all. So it's like 5% of the game. But for the 95%, you want to show your audience, take your audience through that journey and really give them as much value as possible without overloading them. Like, I'm not talking like, hyper educating them, but show them that you get them. Show them that they're not alone. Show them that there is a different way to think about this. Show them your values, show them your method and help them build that trust. And when they trust you, when they trust your offer, when they trust themselves to like carry through and take the necessary actions to get an ROI, that is when they're going to invest in you. And that is when a CTA comes in place. But for the bulk of it, really make sure your story is there to help them see things differently and to build that trust within them.
What do you say to the person that says, I don't want to be salesy?
honestly, I've experienced this for the longest time. And this is why I always say, like, sometimes a mindset problem is really a strategy problem. Because if you don't know how you serve your clients, if you don't know what you really bring to the table, if you don't see the full power of your work and your magic, of course you're going to feel salesy because you are in integrity and you should be very proud of that. And I always find the woman with the most integrity always finds it harder to sell. And the fact that you're asking yourself, how can I not be salesy? You will never be salesy in that way. And it's either that or you're taught a certain strategy that is just icky, right? So when it comes to storytelling and sharing that storytelling, I always make sure, again, this is where the strategic part comes in, the strategic storytelling part. You're not just sharing story for the sake of sharing a story. There's always a goal in there, whether that is to help your audience see something differently, add that value to their life, teach them something different, show them something different, give them a new perspective, expand the identity, show them what is possible, make them feel less alone. Those are all value add. When you're able to trigger a certain emotion, whether that is relief, whether that is clarity, empowerment, that aha moment, that is when your audience is going to lean in. This is when sales become easy because your value, your thought leadership, your knowledge, your expertise, your story is already doing the selling for you, right? So this is where selling doesn't feel like pulling teeth because you're literally leading with value and ending it with an invitation saying like, hey, if this really resonates with you, I've got more in my paid offer, and we can talk about which one is the best offer for you to jump in. And this is where, I would really have people really think about, like, look, if your free content is already super, super valuable, if you're sharing your story, if you're helping people see things differently, that is so insanely valuable. Don't be afraid to point people to that space, because I also get a lot of clients whose audience makes them feel really guilty for charging, right? They say, if you really care about us, you wouldn't be charging. If you really want to help us, you wouldn't be charging. And this is why I say, when your free offer, when your free content is already so insanely valuable, you won't feel salesy because there will always be resources for people out there, right? It's just a matter of how close they want to get with you in that proximity. So this is where I tell my clients, make sure your offer suite is on point. Make sure your messaging is really giving that value, right? And if that is all in place, you won't feel salesy. Right? That's the strategic part done. Maybe a little mindset work is needed. But for the most part, when you know how you serve your people, you won't be afraid to talk about it.
That's a great point. And you also mentioned something too, like maybe you've just been taught a bad strategy. I know that has happened. How many times you get a cold message or something from someone and you're like, you can instantly tell what they're going to get at. And it's like, ick. That could be part of the problem too, that somebody said this works for people, but it doesn't feel good to you. And it's okay for you to say, no, this doesn't feel good to me. I'm not doing it this way. And I think that sometimes is one of the hardest things, especially early on, to make those decisions, because you think, well, it works for other people. I should just keep pushing through. No, when you don't feel in alignment, like I cannot support that. You need to do something that works for you because it's going to feel so much better. And you're going to actually book clients then versus the other way.
There's a million strategies out there and they all work. They all work. And some people love cold pitching, right? And it works for them. It works really well. So just pick what works for you and what feels good to you.
Exactly. That's so good. Is there anything we haven't covered? We've covered so much. We might be at the point of overwhelm, actually, but which is fantastic. That's what I love about podcasts, is because there is that service. People could listen to this and run with it. But then people that don't want to DIY it, or they want more support, or they're really connected on this topic, those are the ones that we have to say that we have a business and we have more that we can help them with, because we want to serve them too. And the way we're going to do that is in a paid situation. But for the most part, we've just dropped so much knowledge and things here that we can feel really great about the service that just happened, is what I also love about podcasts, is that that's how they usually are. But is there anything we haven't touched on that you're like, wait, we got to get this in?
No, I think that's basically it. Like, if I were to have anyone can walk away with one thing, it would just be that make sure you have a goal behind everything. Create your content with intention. Speak from your heart, yes, but make sure you have an intention behind it. Because like you said, if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have an intention, this is when you're going to start throwing spaghetti. This is when you're going to start exhausting yourself. And that's not what we want. We want you to pour from a full cup. So make sure everything is created with intention, with care. Even if you're not going to be posting as much, that's okay. Train that muscle. It will get stronger. You will get there.
And I know that you have a free Cut the Noise free masterclass. Tell me about that. And also, where can people connect with you after this?
So the best best place to connect with me is on Instagram and Threads. So my handle is at Xindi, BYXINDI. And I have a free masterclass. Like, honestly, I've gotten such great feedback for that. I'm so happy with everyone who attended it. They say they need to watch it twice because I'm like the queen of over delivering and like overwhelming people. Like you said, almost to the point.
So good though.
It is. It's a 90-minute masterclass where I literally break down my strategic storytelling method with examples that I pull from real life situations, completely anonymous. I change things slightly, but I really want to show you how maybe you're holding yourself back in your messaging. So I've got really specific examples there and show you how you can turn the current content that you have into strategic stories. I've had clients, sign clients off of that masterclass alone, like multiple 4-figure clients hitting their highest sales month with that masterclass completely free alone. So definitely make sure to check that out.
I will link all that in the show notes, and I just appreciate your time and all the knowledge that you dropped and served us with today.
I am so happy to be here. I'm so glad we can talk about this because I'm like, everyone needs to know about this concept. So thank you so much for having me.
I love it. Thank you. All right, that's it for today. If this episode gave you a little aha or you're thinking about guesting on podcasts now, I'd love to hear about it. Screenshot the episode, tag me on Instagram at Candice Dudley, and let me know your biggest takeaways. And don't forget to come back next Tuesday for another episode.